Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive. And good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Wherever you're listening to this show, this is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, British by birth, American by choice, welcoming you to episode 287 of Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. Been going on for a number of years now. Want to go on for a little bit longer. So we'll see how that works out. But right now we're in interesting times as we are really in the thick of things now, starting to lead up to the first primaries, which will be taking place early next year. Lots of fun. And over the last few weeks, talked quite a bit about Trump. Difficult to ignore the 800-pound gorilla in the room. We'll talk a little bit about him tonight, but I have some other topics as well. It's a show that's coming to you from the home studio, from my main Patrick Come Lately studio. Yes, I'm back in Georgia this week, buzzing around the place as I said last week, but probably be here for a couple of weeks and then hopefully perhaps back on the road again. But with all the travel, still able to keep up with some of the things going on around the place, and of course many interesting things happening. Excuse me. And one other thing is my apologies for any interruptions like that cough. Hope they're not too much of a problem for you. But I have managed to catch a cold as well. So sorry about that. Just writing down. No, Homeland doesn't have my audio, folks. I'm going to restart this, and I'll have to cut off the beginning. Sorry about this. I noticed that a switch wasn't flicked on my board here. Here I am, mute button, exactly. And I know I'd clicked it, but for some reason, sometimes my mouse doesn't seem to be working. I've had this on other things as well, and I click something and it doesn't actually work. So I have to be a little bit more careful. Anyway, folks, I'm going to restart. I will be back in just a moment.
Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive.
And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever, whenever you're listening to the show. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, starting a little bit later than normal for my live listeners. My apologies, technical difficulty there. I thought I'd clicked the mute button back to microphone on, but for some reason it didn't work. Anyway, we will get started. First of all, this show is coming to you from the Patrick Come Lately home studio. Yes, I'm back in Georgia, enjoying the nice fall weather here. It's we had a very rainy weekend last weekend. Unfortunately, I had an event and we had to cancel out on that. But now the weather's clearing up, and hoping to perhaps go up to the mountains this weekend and enjoy the fall weather up there. Got a lot to talk about this week. The title of the show says a little bit of Trump. Can't ignore the 800 gorilla in the room, but I picked up some interesting information that I want to share with you. It's not totally Trump. That's why I said only a little bit of Trump. I got some other topics that hopefully we can get to in the hour as well. So we will. Oh, and excuse me for the coughs. I'm fighting a cold here, so hopefully I won't let it intrude too much into the show. But if you get the occasional quick silence of a second or two, that could be because I have another tickle in the throat there. That So let's get on with our topics. And the first topic that I want to talk about is that little bit of Trump. This is something that picked up from a blog written by someone who goes under the name Sundance, and he's been studying the GOP elites, the Washington clique, and he's been tracking their GOP strategy to have Jeb Bush elected as the GOP nominee. And he and many others were trying to make sure this would not happen. And he himself said in this post that I found, he has a number of posts around this GOP strategy, but in this particular one, he was talking about Donald Trump and saying that he had seriously underestimated Donald Trump. After studying the construct of the GOP elite strategy to elect Jeb Bush and having lost the single most important battle in May 2014 to stop it, I was deflated and disenfranchised. Few were willing to accept the roadmap and sheer level of Machiavellian strategy deployed by the professional political class. He says every single prediction that he'd made, he calls them tripwires, which stems from understanding the construct, was triggered in the exact sequence. And we resigned ourselves to the outlook that Tom Donahue, who is head of the Chamber of Commerce, Mitch McConnell and their team, and I like to include John Boehner in that, were going to pull it off. But he says, then the wild card entered the race. And he's talking about a speech that Donald Trump gave a few weeks ago. And he now says that he believes that Trump knows the construct of the GOP elite scheme, and he is going to work to undermine that. And folks, what he means is Trump is talking about the GOP elites, and he's talking about Citizens United, which that was a decision which allowed the use of almost any kind of money in the election. Now, at the time, Conservatives and Republicans saw the Citizens United decision as a win for our team, a win for free speech, and a win to push back against all the unions' money that was supporting the leftist political apparatus. So that's what it seemed. And what happened is, with all that money coming in 2010, the insurgents, the Tea Party, the Freedom Caucus, whatever you want to call it, defeated dozens of incumbent Republicans in both the House and Senate, replacing them with more conservative representatives. Jim DeMint's Senate Conservative Fund, which was a traditional political action committee, was a key element in supporting Marco Rubio, Mike Lee, Ron Johnson, Rand Paul, etc. And of course, the elites and establishment Republicans were furious. So they knew they had to do something. So in 2012, they formulated plans to do that, and that was what are now called super PACs. And this allowed the establishment Republicans to pour billions into very specific election processes and subvert the traditional dependency on campaign financial support from the electorate. Exactly what the left has been saying, and I have to say I'm ashamed that I have to agree with the left that in that respect, while Citizens United seems to be something that supports free speech, in practice it does not. And we saw this happen, and this is how Mitt Romney basically got nominated. So, that was really what happened. In 2014, the process took on new levels of political maneuvering. And Sundance says that the constructs and the goals became clear. Number one, to keep Obamacare, to get immigration reform to include amnesty, and to establish Common Core federal education standards. You might say, well, why would the Chamber of Commerce and why would the Republicans be supporting Common Core? Well, if you go back, I think, to 2014, I had an interview with an educator who was running for office here in Georgia, and she mentioned that one of the issues with Common Core is that all of the testing and a lot of the materials for Common Core are provided by companies that are investing very heavily in certain candidates and in super PACs. Well, with all the money that came from Wall Street, the Chamber of Commerce, and others, we had people like Ken Cuccinelli, Matt Bevin in Kentucky, and Chris McDaniel in Mississippi, who basically could not win, right? They didn't win, and Cuccinelli and Bevin, it might have been close, but Chris McDaniel would certainly have won in Mississippi. But he didn't, and part of that was because of the GOP elites' machinations behind the scenes. So, what do we do about that? Well, according to Sundance, you could see the GOP elites building a similar roadmap to have Jeb Bush nominated. And he says that without the super PACs, and it is only the super PACs that was going to assure them a victory in 2016. Without super PACs, campaigns of people like Gilmore, Pataki, Lindsey Graham, Mike Huckabee, Rick Perry, John Kasich, Carly Fiorina, Rick Santorum, and Chris Christie cannot exist. They do not get enough money from the electorate. They wouldn't be in the race. And they are only in the race to split votes and to support Jeb Bush. And this is what Donald Trump has been telling us. But will the electorate see it? Well, hopefully their eyes will open. Will the media report it? I doubt the LSM will do that, but I'm doing it, and hopefully you, my listeners, can spread this message. So, if we can show to the electorate what's going on, and we can have someone who's not subservient to these super PACs, who isn't subservient to the Washington elite, that would be really great. And that basically means a Trump. So what does Trump have to continue to do? He has to continue to drive home the messages that the candidates are not supported by people, but are supported by Wall Street. And this is what Trump's been saying all the time. He says, I'm not beholden to anyone. I don't take any money, so I can be the man of the people, for the people, by the people. And Sundance says, once the sunlight comes upon the super PACs and the real intent of the candidacy is exposed via embarrassment, in other words, once a candidate actually has to be accountable for the support they don't have, they may need to drop out. So what he's saying is, expose them. And when we've got rid of people who are supported heavily by super PACs only, hopefully then the remaining candidates can battle evenly on the field of ideas. Well, that's going to be difficult because there will always be money in the race. And as we've said, to limit that through laws could be unconstitutional because of the First Amendment. It's a difficult path, but it does make things difficult. So one final quick thing, and another reason why the Washington establishment really hate Trump so much is because he's threatening the North American Union's scheme. Rush Limbaugh has said in the past Donald Trump made illegal immigration into an issue of national debate. But it isn't just criminal aliens. It isn't just illegal aliens and the amnesty for aliens. In actual fact, this whole plan is something that's been on the drawing board for more than a decade. Simply put, the plan is to submerge the sovereignty of the United States of America and politically integrate the US, Canada, and Mexico into a trilateral entity called the North American Union, something that the Council on Foreign Relations calls the North American Community. Yeah, so we're going to take a corrupt and untrustworthy Mexico and mesh it with the democratic systems in the US and Canada. All they want is open borders and more criminal aliens in the US. Sorry about that, folks. Another cough came along. So, here is some information that is actually rather frightening. And it's so frightening that I'm going to take a quick break so I can lubricate my throat with a little bit of my latest beverage that's just become ready as a somebody of English heritage. Of course, I love hard cider, and I've just got a keg, it's not quite perfect yet. It'll be a lot better in a couple of weeks, but it is eminently drinkable right now, and I'm going to do that while you all listen to a commercial. So I will be right back.
You can lose 10, 20, 30 pounds or more with Maximum Slim's first ever rapid weight loss guarantee. Today, you get Maximum Slim, an advanced fat and carb blocker, absolutely risk-free. The all-natural ingredients in Maximum Slim are a powerful weight loss combination. The Maximum Slim formula turns your body into a fat-burning furnace that supercharges your weight loss. Advanced fat and carb blocker stops the breakdown of sugar so your body doesn't store it as fat. Today, you'll get both of these products absolutely risk-free with no obligation. Only pay shipping. There are no expensive meal plans or exhausting DVDs. Just take Maximum Slim twice a day. It's fast, simple, and now it's guaranteed. Look, you can start losing weight today or not. Go back to your high school days and wear your favorite jeans again. Guaranteed. Call now and get both weight loss formulas free. Call 800-451-0228. 800-451-0228. That's 800-451-0228.
Doc, you gotta give it to me straight.
All right.
'Cause I'm dying here. I mean, take a look at this letter from the IRS.
Oh, my.
This is killing me, Doc. I tell you, it's killing me.
Cheer up, my friend.
Huh?
The tax doctor is here. My diagnosis tells me that you're going to be just fine.
Really?
The tax doctor will not rest until we find you the best possible tax settlement.
Really, Doc?
Guaranteed.
If the IRS claims you owe them $10,000 or more in business or personal back taxes, call a tax doctor right now. We could save you up to 75% if you qualify. Guaranteed or you pay nothing. Call right now for free details.
800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. That's 800-917-8546.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us.
And thanks for sticking with me through that break. I was talking about Trump exposing this plan for the North American community. And the reporter that posted this said that he had attended a conference on the topic of North American economic and political integration in 2007. Remember, this is even before Obama came into power, which included proposals for a North American Court of Justice with the authority to overrule a decision of the U.S. Supreme Court, a North American Trade Tribunal, and a Charter of Fundamental Human Rights for North America, also dubbed the North American Social Charter. Well, we know anything with the word social in it, social justice, etc., is very definitely regressive. And this doesn't get reported on because not only are the Democrats in it, but also major Republicans. Much of this scheme was hatched by the Republican administration of George W. Bush, but of course it's being carried forward very happily by King Barry. So Trump is threatening to upend all of this and expose it even, because he's talking about keeping illegals out, and yet the plan of the CFR and their cronies was to make it easier for millions of more Mexicans to come to the U.S. completely legally, because the Chamber of Commerce thinks this would be good to have all these people that they can employ with very low wages. I've said it time and time again, what they forget is by paying these people low wages, and a lot of the time they're sending all that money back to Mexico, there is no money here in the U.S. for American companies to sell their goods. You wonder why we have to export all our manufacturing to China and other low-cost places, because there's nobody in America who can afford to buy our stuff. Whereas if we paid decent wages to people, then there would be more money staying here, and there would be more money available for those American manufacturers, and they wouldn't have to worry about moving. So, there is one candidate who's kind of sympathetic to Trump on this. Republican Senator Ted Cruz of Texas has said, I think he's terrific, I think he's brash, I think he speaks the truth. However, the commentator said, this is somewhat ironic, since Cruz's wife, Heidi, who was an investment banker by trade, is also a member of the CFR task force, which in 2005 developed the plan for a North American community. The recommendations of this panel included a multi-billion-dollar investment fund to pull Mexico out of poverty and a North American border pass to facilitate travel between the countries and expansion of temporary worker programs. In other words, flooding us with more cheap labor. In 2011, when he was running for the Senate, Cruz had called the CFR a pernicious nest of snakes that is working to undermine our sovereignty. But his wife worked for the CFR and actually contributed to what they're trying to do. So that's a little bit difficult. Anyway, so folks, no candidate is perfect. A conservative candidate, everybody says, oh, well, Trump's not conservative enough, let's go with Cruz. Cruz has his baggage as well. Let's just be aware of that. Nobody is perfect. So if we go back to this CFR plan, Obama's been continuing the process, and after meeting with the leaders of Mexico and Canada in 2014, last year, said plans for a North American transportation plan and a North American trusted traveler program would go forward. So the idea that these three would get together in a summit every year was also one of the recommendations of the 2005 CFR task force, which Heidi Cruz participated in. Folks, these things going on, they are trying to take away our liberty. They are just going ahead and doing whatever they want and taking no account of what is good for the country. It's just what is good for them. Folks. Yeah, and I see in the chat room here, Rex mentioning there's talk about impeaching Bush after his leaving office 7 years ago. If he's involved with this, I can understand that. I did hear about that. I haven't followed the reasons for it, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay, I think it's time for a new topic. And a while back, when just after the so-called Iran deal, which they call a deal because it can't be called a treaty, because otherwise it can't be approved. But as a deal, the Senate abrogated its power and said, okay, we will allow it that it has to have a supermajority to vote against it, which is totally bizarre world, upside down. It's supposed to be that when a new treaty comes along, a supermajority of the Senate is supposed to vote in favor if the thing is going to be accepted. But it's a deal, not a treaty, so they say. And of course, immediately afterwards, one of the big arguments from the progressives, John Kerry, going around saying, well, we can't go back and say it's got to be different because that would be embarrassing. The Ayatollahs wouldn't trust America anymore. And I said there were some things that the Ayatollahs were saying already about it. Well, it's got even worse. They have now the Ayatollah Khamenei, who's the head honcho there, is giving a new headache to the Obama regime and the others that are trying to implement the deal, because he has demanded that sanctions be lifted entirely, not just suspended. In the current deal, they are suspended till Iran actually shows that they can earn the lifting of the sanctions, and they could then very easily be put back. But he is now demanding that they should be lifted entirely, making it very much more difficult to do that. So, of course, John Kerry met with the Iranian counterpart when they were all here for the United Nations meeting, and they were planning to discuss that, but it's just supposedly they were going to have some informal talks just to kind of clear up some of the questions. But now there are people, especially in the Middle East, basically asking whether the talks are being reopened. Well, if they're being reopened, folks, how about we then include some of the things about which the American public is very troubled? Things like, why can the Iranians be allowed to do their own checking of what they're doing, right? Which makes absolutely no sense of not having UN inspectors go in, but they're going to provide inspection results to the UN to show that they're not doing anything bad. Yes, right. But I think the main thing about this fact, whether or not the negotiations are reopened, first of all, it shows that Donald Trump is exactly right. Kerry and Obama have absolutely no idea about negotiating a deal. They are just absolute disasters in doing that. But now they've negotiated one, and they said, well, we can't change it because we'd look stupid. And yet the Iranians have no problems. You know, this is the second time they've said some things that they would like to have it changed. So, it's amazing. Now, on about 2 weeks ago, Kerry said he planned to meet with his Russian and his Iranian counterparts regarding Iran and other things. Why would you meet with Russia? Well, because Putin has taken the offensive and is now working with Iran and with Assad in Syria and forming a bloc in the Middle East, pushing America out. And I think I mentioned this last week. This is really egg on Obama's face, because Putin is really showing them up for the weakling and the useless negotiator and the poor leader, and just absolutely knowing nothing about what he's doing whatsoever in foreign policy. Just a total and absolute mess. Is anything going to happen? Who knows? Who knows? Will the deal still go through? Well, the GOP certainly rolled over again for Obama on that one. So we just have to wait and see what's going to happen. Very disappointing, folks. Very disappointing. Okay, I see that it is indeed time for a break, and I will be right back after these messages.
Patriot come lately. British by birth. American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
Every day, millions of Americans grow more concerned about the future of our great nation. The truth is, over the last century, a small but powerful collectivist movement known as progressivism has debased our politics, our culture, and our currency. We're just a small step from falling into 1,000 years of darkness, as Ronald Reagan warned. Friend, this is Pat Boone with an important free offer on a hot new book called The Great Withdrawal by Craig Smith and Lowell Ponte. This new book explains how we, the people, can end this fatal detour into big government and get back on the path of faith and freedom charted by our founders. Call now for a free copy of the hot new book called The Great Withdrawal.
Call now for your free copy. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. That's 800-978-3901.
Owe $10,000 or more to the IRS that you can't pay? Call now for immediate help. At the Tax Relief Line, we help people just like you. If you take on the IRS alone, you could be facing levies, liens, even wage garnishments, personal or business tax issues. If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS, call now and see if you can pay less. They can freeze your bank accounts, even garnish your wages. Call the Tax Relief Line now for immediate help. Our expert team of tax professionals will negotiate your tax problem and deal with the IRS for you. If the IRS is threatening you with levies, wage garnishments, or seizing your assets, call now and see if you can pay the IRS less.
888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, keeping the spirit of America alive, a proud member of the Red State Talk Radio Network.
And thanks for sticking with me. We are going into the second half of the show here. And I just want to remind folks about something. Here's a band some of you may know, or a member of a band some of you may know, with a very important message.
This is Jeff Carlisi from the band 38 Special. Let us never forget that police lives matter.
And, of course, that's really important. Police lives matter. I wanted to bring that forward because there's been a number of incidents now around the country of police officers being disrespected, refused service, etc. I think the latest one was a Dunkin' Donuts, and I'm very disappointed. It was a Dunkin' Donuts actually in West Hartford, which is close to where I was last week. West Hartford, Connecticut, that refused a police officer service. Of course, the manager ran out and apologized, but as far as we know to date, the person who did that hasn't been fired. And Greta on her program suggested that Dunkin' Donuts, the CEO of Dunkin' Donuts, ought to send an email out and say, tomorrow, every officer in uniform is welcome to come to Dunkin' Donuts, get a free donut, and get a free cup of coffee. He didn't do that. This is very disappointing that people are allowing, and sometimes it is only just one or two individuals, but they're spoiling it for everybody else, to disrespect the law officers in that way. And I have an answer for them. Every time something like that happens, then the police just say, okay, we will refuse to police that particular store. If there's a break-in or anything like that, they're on their own, or they can hire private security. We're not going to do anything. That would be the way to do it. Same as they ought to have done in Baltimore. Just said, you know what? You guys want the streets? We're going to pull back, and you can do whatever you like, and see what people think then. I doubt that would happen, unfortunately, but I think that that's what they do, especially when like Dunkin' Donuts doesn't seem to be taking any action about this particular case other than apology. But it's just like anybody on the left. They think they can do something. If they get away with it, great. If they don't get away with it, they apologize. But there's no consequences. And that really gets on my nerves. Now, having said that, we saw again today there was some video about a lady who was stopped apparently for driving without a seatbelt, but is out of a car fighting and screaming. They were wanting to arrest her, and she was fighting against it. Well, a couple of things here. Number one, why did she get out of the car? Why does she even have to get out of the car? Normally, if you're driving without a seatbelt, the officer writes your ticket, gives you the ticket. So was she bad-mouthing? Was she disrespecting the police officers? Who knows? You don't really expect someone to be arrested and handcuffed and fought to the ground just for driving without a seatbelt. But to a certain extent, I can also understand it. I think police officers are getting frustrated with everything that's going on, and someone badmouths them or disrespects them. They sometimes snap. Is that right? No, it's very bad. We expect more of our police. But I have to say, I can understand it. And it is sad because it just makes it worse for all the good police officers that are there, that do hold themselves in spite of everything that's being said about them, hold their heads up high, do a good job. It's sad because these bad apples spoil it for others. And in essence, these people, even though, if they do snap, even whatever the provocation, they're not supposed to snap. And it's sad. But like I said, I can understand why they do, but they shouldn't, irrespective. Okay. So, folks, let's go on. I want to... Well, there's a couple of things I could talk about. Gun control, of course, after the Oregon massacre and the politicization that's going on there. But first of all, I want to talk about this. This was an article that was published in Salon.com. Yes, a left-wing site, I know, but occasionally I do read them. And this was written by a Muslim in America, basically talking about what Ben Carson had said, which this commentator describes as religious segregationist views. And he claims to talk about an email to Carson's constituents claiming that under Sharia law, women must be subservient and people following other religions must be killed. Excuse me, Mr. Commentator. Have you not seen what's going on the news? I mean, do you really think that we're stupid? Now, sorry about that, folks. Dr. Carson has been defending these claims by saying he hates political correctness, it's dangerous, and he's right. But this commentator says more dangerous is the fact that his patently false claims about women in Islam and dangerous are his false claims about Islam's view of non-Muslims. I mean, this is Taqiyya of the highest order. Now, supposedly, Taqiyya is a tenet of Islam that allows a Muslim to lie about his religion to save his life when he's under duress. But this has been extended, especially by Muslim extremists, to basically allow them to lie in any way to further Islam. And this is exactly what this commentator is doing. He says, Carson's parents divorced when he was 8, a right American women didn't have till the 19th century. Meanwhile, Islam was the first religion to give women the right to choose to marry. Excuse me? they can marry a 5-year-old child and she has absolutely no say in the matter, or to divorce, the right to own property, to become secular or religious scholars, the right to inherit or to run a business, all in the 7th century. Well, maybe that was true in the 7th century, but we're in the 19th century now, and there are throwbacks in the Muslim religion, and maybe they are extremists, but the moderates don't say anything about it, that interpret their tenets in a very different way. Giving women the right to choose to marry? No way. And you really think a Muslim wife can divorce? She probably needs 10 men to prove that she did it of her own accord. Right? You remember, if a woman accuses another man of rape, there have to be 4 other Muslims that witnessed it, Muslim men that witnessed it, to prove that it was rape. And this commentator is really saying that Islam liberated women. Tell that to ISIS. Tell that to the Taliban. Tell that to Malala. Here's another quote that he gave. He said, Prophet Muhammad repeatedly declared, "It is incumbent upon every Muslim male and every Muslim female to attend education." And when Malala in Afghanistan was going to school, the Taliban tried to assassinate her. And you say that is normal? I'm sorry. Another quote from this crazy commentator. The Quran, he says, only permits fighting in self-defense. Again, tell that to ISIS. Or you're allowed to fight to protect churches, synagogues, temples, and mosques from attack. So what's supposed to happen about ISIS blowing up temples and other antiquities? The Taliban destroying the Buddha statues in Afghanistan. What about that? That doesn't sound like fighting to protect things. That sounds like fighting to destroy things. So, as I said, Taqiyya, lying to defend your faith, is very obviously what this commentator has done. And it is amazing that Salon.com even dares publish something as stupid and as patently a lie as this person has been promulgating. Okay, folks, time for my last break here, and I will be back shortly.
The offer of a franchise can only be made through delivery of a franchise disclosure document. Imagine yourself being a leader in America's fastest growing demographic category. More than 10,000 people a day turn 65, and a large percentage are going to need a helping hand at home or in choosing the right assisted living community. Always Best Care is looking for people who've excelled at everything they've done, but they're seeking a new challenge. Always Best Care is one of the fastest growing companies in this explosive field. We're looking for 25 new franchisees to keep our booming business growing. We'll back you up with the strongest award-winning marketing program in the industry, and we'll provide the special training and support that's fueled our growth to prepare you for this great opportunity. All that's missing is you. Call Always Best Care toll-free at 1-800-643-7508. That's 1-800-643-7508. For Always Best Care, 1-800-643-7508. Call today.
If you're diabetic, this message could change your life. Is your blood sugar out of control even when you do all the right stuff? Are you afraid of diabetic blindness and the risk of amputation, as well as all those other side effects? Well, you should be. Is there anything that could help manage your blood sugar? Nobetes is a natural supplement that may quickly and dramatically lower your blood sugar.
My name is Bob Corder. I've been using Nobetes for about 3.5 to 4 months now. And in the first 3 months, I've actually lowered my blood sugars from 500s down to 139, and then it dropped to 88 to 90. 293.
My name is Kirsten. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and while taking Nobides, my blood sugar levels dropped from 295 to 115 in just one day.
The FDA hasn't evaluated these statements, and Nobides isn't intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. But for many, it's helped drop their blood sugar. So if you've been evaluated with high blood sugar, don't delay. Evaluate Nobides now. Call 800-551-8302 and get your free bottle. Just cover shipping and handling. Call 800-551-8302. That's 800-551-8302.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us.
Okay, folks, we're into the final segment of the show. Just a reminder here, if you're listening to one of the recordings or rebroadcasts of the show, you can contact me by sending an email to stephan@patrickcomelately.us, or if you prefer not to use email, like Bill Clinton, you can always go to the website www.patrickcomelately.us, click on the contact button, and it'll generate a little form where you can type in your comments, questions, feedback about the show. Love hearing from my listeners, and as much as possible, if you do contact me, I'll bring it into the show. So, and just a reminder, if you're listening to the show live, do share with your friends, please, and remember the show is rebroadcast on the Red State Talk Radio Network. Couple of times on Studio A, a couple of times on Studio B. See the site, redstatetalkradio.com, for the schedule. Let your friends know when they can hear this. And basically in the week following this show, the show is rebroadcast. And also the 405 Radio, a left coast station, also rebroadcast the show, I believe on a daily basis at a fixed time. I'm not sure. I think about, I seem to remember 10 or 11 a.m. Pacific time. But again, go to the show site for the schedule. Tell your friends they can get it there. And of course, you can always go to either radio.patrickcomelately.us or archives.patrickcomelately.us and pick up the show as well. So before the break, we were talking about this Salon.com article and how someone can just have the absolute goal to publish something like that is so patently untrue. Here are some actual truths. Here's something that is an assessment of persecution of Christians by a group called Open Doors USA, and they have something they call the World Watch List. And what they do is they catalog instances of persecution and marry that with the population information that's published by the State Department and or the Central Intelligence Agency. And based on that, they put a rating by country for the amount of persecution of Christians that happens. So let's have a look, the top 10. Now, at the top of the list, and has been for many years, is North Korea. So, okay, that can happen. That's fine. But the remaining 9 countries all happen to be countries that have a Muslim population of 50% or greater. And this is something that I saw on Facebook where they said in countries with Muslim majorities, there are little or no non-Muslim minorities. And that's because basically they want to, they just want to persecute them. So the World Watch List talks about all the obvious countries. Somalia, which is number 2 behind Korea, has about a 99.8% Muslim population, and then as you go down to 9 and 10 at the end of the list, Eritrea and is 50%, and Nigeria has 50% Muslims, and they also have a lot of instances of Christian persecution. Of course, Obama, in his speech last week to the world leaders at the UN General Assembly, took on critics that often associate Muslims with terrorism and with persecution. Part of our job together is to work to reject such extremism that infects too many of our young people. But part of that effort must be a continued rejection of Muslims, of those who distort Islam to preach intolerance and promote violence. Agreed, that's what Muslims should do. Crickets, folks. It must also involve a rejection by non-Muslims of the ignorance that equates Islam with terror. Yes, dear leader, I don't think that is really very realistic when 90% of the terror acts that have gone on in the world in the last few years have all been caused by people that subscribe to a particular religion. So we've still got a little bit more time. A couple of quick topics here. We all thought we'd lost the fight against Obamacare, that the lawsuits that were against challenging the Unaffordable Care Act, or the Patient Protection and Unaffordable Care Act as it's known, Obamacare. But early September, a judge in the Federal District Court of Columbia refused to dismiss a lawsuit filed by the entire U.S. House of Representatives against the Obama administration over its funding of certain aspects of Obamacare. In other words, the House of Representatives has finally got some backbone and said, no, guys, you are funding this, whereas funding has to come from the Congress, has to come actually from the House, and you are funding this and you are directing the funds without having that authority to do it. So another example of where King Barry is basically just ignoring the Constitution. And so now they're taking him to court on that. So who knows? That might work. We might be lucky. So we're going to watch this. There's a lot of details about that. I'm not going to bore you with the details right now, because we are getting towards the end of the show. I think the important thing is that it seems that they do have legs to stand on for this particular court case. They tried to say that the House of Representatives had no standing, was the basic argument, but basically the judge said, no, if you're monkeying around with the funding, which is supposed to be the purview of the House, then yes, the House has standing, because you're not following the Constitution. So we'll have to see what those how much more hold Obama has over John Roberts on the Supreme Court, because it'll probably end up there. But it's interesting to see. Okay, folks, I see the clock, as ever, is ticking down. Of course, if you've been listening live, it's a little bit later than normal, but not very. My apologies for the little hiccup at the beginning. For those of you that are listening to the recording, you will miss that little hiccup, and it will start from as normal. But do join us live as much as possible. I really enjoy having you here and being able to chat with you, and it's nice to know that there are people out there. Yes, most of my listeners do listen to the recordings, do listen to the archives, do listen to the rebroadcasts, but it's still nice to know that when I go out live, it's a bit of a challenge to know that somebody's out there, and I can't just stop and re-record every time I make a mistake. It makes life interesting. So as we get to the end of this, one of the topics I wasn't able to get to was gun control, and I would like to do that, talk about some statistics here and there. Probably a topic for next week, unless something comes up. So folks, there's the music. It's time to say TTFN. Thanks for joining me. Please join me next week again.
Thank you for listening to the show. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's topics. Whether you listened live, to a recording, or to a rebroadcast, I appreciate the time you share with me. We need to spread the message of liberty far and wide, so please tell your friends and family about the show. Thank you for helping to keep the beacon of hope burning. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, signing off. God bless America, and remember, L3, long live liberty.